And we're ready.
Great. Thank you, Owen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September meeting of the Norwalk Parking Authority monthly meeting. We'll have our agenda up in a few minutes or a few seconds, and the first item on that is the public comment. So, Owen, I don't know if when people raise their hands or exactly how they their microphone is on, but you might see a hand raised. I got an email earlier from someone who was planning to speak.
Owen, is there anyone in the lobby?
Yeah, at the moment we have no attendees at the moment. Zero.
Okay.
So we could just wait for them to arrive. Okay.
So we can't do number 2. And then Jim, did you see I know you and I talked and the financials were coming.
So it should have been included in the, Maritza got it out, but let me just stop sharing the screen.
I didn't get to look.
I could turn that over to Staffy if you could put up the operations report stuff.
So if everyone's okay, then yeah, let's go through this, and then when we go back to number 2, we'll have to act on that.
Okay.
Okay, Rocky, you gonna put that up? Thank you. All right. All right, so we didn't have a meeting last month, so this month is going to be basically a 2-month report through August. So 2 months of the fiscal year. So from kind of a high level budget perspective, an actual versus budget on the revenue side, parking revenues up for the month, a little over 14% and over 13% for year to date. Compared to last year, we're also up. And that's mainly coming from the transient revenue side and violations, which we can get into when we get to the variance report, because those did hit the variance report on the criteria. And on the expense side, we are favorable to budget for the month and year to date, so in terms of a financial performance, the operation has been doing well. And then moving on to, we'll just get right into the variance report because that'll cover some of the other topics as well. So on transient parking, we are over budget. That's one of the major revenue buckets that's been over budget, and we've seen that because of the Maritime Garage. The state expanded or extended that free admission to kids under 12 for Connecticut residents at the aquarium. So that has had a direct impact on the Maritime Garage. So that's where we're seeing the biggest positive variance in revenue for transient parking. But a lot of the other locations were still up as well. But that was the major one that we really wanted to highlight. And then on the violation side,
Staffy, if you could just 1 second, I think it's important for the board to know, that these how these incentives really do benefit. We have, I think these were if I recall correctly from the earlier conversations, these were our highest number of transient use that we've ever seen in the garage, right?
Yes. Yep, we had reported, I think, that in the last meeting that we've been seeing since then the highest activity in revenue that we've had in Maritime Garage's history for the month. So it's
and Staffy, did you attribute that to any? Did you say that's because of something, or is it increased just traffic to the aquarium?
It's because of the program that the state extended to parks and aquariums to allow free admission to kids under 12. So families have been showing up to all these places in droves. So it's driven revenue to the garage. I mean, it's always been a driver of business to the garage, but more so now with this program than before.
And I also think the fact that we had a very wet end of the summer. We every time it rains, we do see an increase of that, and so an increase to an event that's also free. Everybody and their mother, no pun intended, was coming to the aquarium and the garage.
Yeah, you're right. So and you're right. That's a great point too, Jim. That foul weather days is also a driver, especially when there's a holiday weekend. Kids have off from school and it rains. It gets busy.
Jim, if I can add, that July 15th, it was raining all day, and that actually was the highest, the busiest in the entire time that I've been in Norwalk. That Maritime Garage has been busy that much, and the rain contributed to that a lot.
And you found, Rocky, in that event, exiting the garage was pleasant?
No, it was not, Eric. We did all we could. We even lifted up the arm gate and used paid tickets were exiting out through the Marshall exit, but it was too much. And I think part of it was also I did have a discussion with Dave Truson from the Maritime Aquarium that they did not limit the number of people they were accepting towards the end of the day. So we at the same time people were exiting, we had people coming in around 4 o'clock, 4:30-ish, and they were not happy as well. So it was not a pleasant experience.
And so Jim, those controls have been in the discussions. Is that the issue, the controls?
No, I think the issue is this. So the controls, as Rocky pointed out, we removed the controls from the equation. We put the gates up.
Okay.
So we had more free flow. The issue was, we were there. It was, there's just a capacity issue, right? And it could only withstand what it could withstand. And it was very, very, very busy. It was rough. It's also, it's rough. It's when everyone, there were lots of groups that were leaving at the same time. So those, when everyone wants to exit the garage at the same time, it's hard to maneuver. So,
and Rocky, I'm sure you probably do this, but do you put people with a payment device deeper into the garage when it gets backed up like that, or are they all right at the exit?
We do not have portable payment devices, but we staffed the aquarium cashier in there, and we were also telling people to pay inside before they left. So that kind of helped us at the exit to lift up the arm gate and letting people out as a free flow. But we do not have a portable device that we go to each vehicle to charge.
So is that something we could look at, Jim?
Well, I mean, so we met today, as a matter of fact, with the vendor. And that would potentially offer us a gateless solution that would eliminate that opportunity. So we're exploring that, setting up more times with him. Had the first preliminary meeting today, and we'll have some others. We did speak with Matt the other day about his experience at the parking at NPA. We talked about setting up another time to get some of pick his brain a little bit about his experience down there, if there's other players that we should be looking at. But now that Brian is here, we're going to go full force to get better services into the Maritime Garage as well as the Sono train station garage.
Are these kinds of things ever tied into E-ZPass?
So we're kind of going on an E-ZPass model. We haven't found anyone who's actually tied into E-ZPass itself, but we're looking at where your plate would be scanned upon entry of the garage, scanned on exit the garage. If you're a permit holder, it just will track that activity. If you are a transient, then you have, there's a pay by cell option. There'll be kiosk options. If you don't pay at all, you just exit the garage, right? Then we would just send you the bill. And that's typically like if you're traveling on I-90, you have it's kind of that same model. That's what we're kind of basing it off of. If you have an Easy Pass, it'll deduct from the Easy Pass. You also have an option to call. They list a number to call, so you could someone in the car could call. But if you don't have if you missed all that, they'll bill you, but they typically bill you at a slightly higher rate than what you would have done because they have to pay for the back end administrative charges. So I think we're looking along that same option.
Very good. Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
The only thing I can add to that, Eric, is that, a lot of times it's not really just the equipment and the payment that's the problem. Most people are paying before they get to their car. So it's a lot of times, because it's a big event and there are a lot of people leaving at the same time, the streets can only handle so much traffic. And when we have, 3 exit lanes, it's like 3 merging into one lane, and it just slows things down.
Right.
So item on the variance report is parking violations. So as we've seen in the past, the number of tickets that we collected was 10% less than budgeted, but the average ticket value was actually 39% higher than budgeted, and that was really because of the beach violations. Beach fines are $150, so that drives up the average ticket value. And then on top of that, we're still having late fees and penalties, and that accounts for about 26% of the collections. And so that's what mainly makes up for the variance. On the operating expense side, those variances, the security variances is really invoices that were actually paid in September, and that's why that's under budget there on security services. The building repair and maintenance, that's actually a typo, and I apologize for that. There were just some expenses on the repair and maintenance side that are not paid. They're going to hit in September. That ticket purchase was from a copy from a different variance report that was on a different line item. So disregard that. We'll fix that. And then the service. Yes.
Sorry, Stati. Can we fix this security issue going forward, please? This is a ongoing issue, three budget cycles of not being able to align timing with invoicing. Well, it really makes the reports look difficult, right? Because at least once a quarter, we have either a major overage or a major underage, right? Is this not something that we can resolve with our vendor? Well, it could be with the vendor. I mean, as far as the budget goes, we did make those corrections from straight lining it to putting them quarterly. But this one was really just the invoices. Either we got later when they got processed, they didn't actually make the check cut before the end of the month, and because we're on a cash basis, that's why we're seeing that. So this I think is unusual, but I think we can commit to getting to these vendors to get us invoices timely, and we have to make the commitment to make sure we process it as quickly as possible too. Thank you.
But so Stati, in my work, if I don't get my invoice by a certain date, it automatically slides a month. So I've not had to look at it from the other side to see what that does to their to their forms like this, but I don't see why we should. I don't see why it should make it hard for us to know exactly where we are because somebody didn't get an invoice in on time. So And maybe like I said, I haven't looked at it from the tracking it from this side, this perspective before. But if it's because the invoices are late, then can we not make it their problem and instead of something that we have to wrestle with?
Well, I mean, we need to pay on the invoice. I mean, unless we change to an accrual system, and start tracking AP, that would be the way to make these, look more like the budget.
Right, I'm not suggesting we redo how we do everything, but okay.
Stothy, why are we on cash versus accrual for all this?
I mean, that's usually how we run our reports, but there's nothing to say, we can't talk about doing it on an accrual basis. I mean, for the most part, I mean, parking is kind of mostly on a cash basis because most of the, invoices are received, processed on time, and paid in that month, unless they're, received at the very end of the month, and we get them late. But maybe let us look into how we might be able to improve it, and then if this really continues, then maybe we'd suggest changing the accounting methodology.
Well, I no, I can see your point about being on cash. I mean, all our income is cash, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can go onto some modified accrual basis. I'm not really an accountant, but I can certainly, we can ask the question to our accounting team and see if they have any suggestions.
Okay. Thank you.
And then on the service contracts, that's the Tim Haas consulting contract, but those were from actually earlier months that we didn't receive the payment, so that was, or didn't receive the invoice. Is that right? Is that right, Rocky?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So that one has just been, that's the design work for the Yankee Doodle garage, and that's just really dependent on when they meet the milestone to deliver the thing. So we're nearly wrapped up. We're wrapped up with that design. We're looking at the structural improvements that need to be made before we can begin that work. But so we should not see too many more invoices coming from THA for that service.
And that might be a line item too that may never really match up, because if they have a contract for consulting and sometimes something gets delayed, we may have had it budgeted, but it didn't come through, so it wouldn't have mattered how we accounted for it.
I think Matt is just more talking about what we not necessarily like the consulting services that may vary, but the ones that we don't, the ones that we know more of, like security services that happen on a regular basis, that those should be. If the only thing we saw was a service contract, I don't think the issue was there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's noted. So let's see. So unless there's any questions on this, we'll move on to the full statement. The highlighted items are the items that were in the variance report. So I'll pause for a moment to see if anybody has any questions there.
Just a quick one, because it's not a major variance, but is utilities a timing issue, or are we really being efficient?
Matt, that looks like a timing issue.
Okay.
Utilities.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look into that. But if Rocky thinks it's timing, then yeah. All right, and moving on. So system-wide activity has been pretty steady. And you'll notice too, I'll preface the rest of this by saying all the graphs, we've gone back down to just showing the current fiscal year and the 2 previous fiscal years. We only did that in the past because of COVID, so now we're not doing that. And the other thing is the ranges on the x-axis I've tried to make smaller so you could see some separation between the lines. So in some cases, it may look better or worse than it really is. If you really look at the numbers, it may not be as significant as it seems in the graph. So just a note to remember. So system-wide, activity has been pretty steady. We're within % of the budget. And then, you can see by location through August where we've been. And when we get to on street, you'll see how that kind of drops. We can talk a little bit about that. But otherwise, overall, it's been pretty good. On the revenue side, you can see that we are favorable to the previous year to date. Moving on to permit activity, that's been we're actually pretty close to budget on it, so it's been pretty consistent. And then moving to on-street parking.
So Staffy, just on that, we saw a slight decline in permit activity.
Yes, there was a slight decline of well, from month to month, 1.4%, and that I can tell you where that came from.
Maybe we could just touch base or we get Brian to meet with you to look at that, in an issue where we're seeing an increase in train activity. I want to be concerned when we see any drop at this point. So we could dig in deeper into that and maybe come up with some just a closer look at what those permit activities are.
Yeah, and this is one where
Jim, I think it's some of it, most of it is coming from Yankee Truck Garage, where we have Ford dealers. So he does cut back on when he doesn't have a new car. So that dip that you're seeing is not a huge number, but that's mainly coming from Yankee Truck Garage.
Okay, all right, that's okay. That's a different one. Yep.
yeah, I just pulled it up too, and this is one of those things too where the graph may in absolute terms look a little worse than it actually is. But yeah, so for Yankee Doodle, it was a drop of 35 July to August. But the rest of them were pretty insignificant, 3-4 Harper's.
Okay.
Was actually up. Some of the others were pretty consistent. So on street, this is one of those ones where I think kind of the activity looks a little deceivingly lower compared to last year. Some of that, the reason for that, and in discussions Rocky and I have been having is, we made this change from the single space meters to the multi-space meters, and that definitely had an impact on transactions. Some of it is just because there tends to be a higher transaction value with the multi-space meter as opposed to the single space because there's less coin transactions. And a lot of times too, with those IPS single space meters, it could lead to kind of a higher transaction count when we pull the records, and some of it is because if you go back and add extend your transaction to, when you drop coins in there, it can create another transaction, even though it's the same one that's extended. So that could be part of it as well. So all this kind of coincides with the replacement of the single space to multi-space. So we went from about 250 single space meters, and now we're down to only about 27. And then when you look at kind of the credit card activity, August of this year, for on-street, 88% of the transactions were credit card or pay by cell, which is credit card, as opposed to last year when we had more single space meters. There was only 65% that were credit cards. And on this page too, we added that additional information that the board had asked for, comparing kind of the transactions and revenue between the Sono district, the Wall Street district, and the connector area on West Ave. And so you can see that. And then moving on to enforcement. Year to date compared to last year, issuance was up. Revenue was also up, but it was down from 2 years ago. Issuance was down from last month as well. And citation revenue accounts for, you see the little pie chart at the end of the page, a little over, almost 23% of system revenues.
And something, again, the citation revenue includes the beach.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yes, it does. So it's, yeah, so you can see kind of the little spike during the summer. So of course that translates into the ticket issuance versus demand ratio report on the next page. So there's a bump in that from last month. Yeah. And then on the next page of the demand ticket issuance, excuse me, versus demand analysis, this was on a street by street basis. So before we move on to the last page,
Do you know why the Sono surface lot is so high? Any idea on that? The train station lot. It says it's 5%. Do you know why that is?
You're on the graph on page 10 for the chart.
It is 5%. This is actually a full year comparison for the past 5 years. So
right,
if you got it was 8.9, 6.1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So it's actually declining.
Okay.
But
Got it. Thank you.
Jim and I also looked at these numbers, and some are reaching out to some of them and so they can convert into permit parkers. But we've noticed some people are just parking and getting repeated violation tickets. So some are it's just constantly getting it and not disputing that not converting into a permit parker.
Yep. Okay. I see it is declining. So that's great. Okay, good. Thank you.
Right. And on the last page, pay by cell is always a great story for us. We're seeing more and more users, more and more penetration. Activities up over 17%. And we don't see it slowing down. In terms of the average transaction, you can see that's up, or it's higher than the average transaction, system wide. That was something the board had asked about before. So it's a good story to end on. So if there's Rocky, do we have anything else that we need to bring up, or?
No, nothing to bring up.
So unless there's any other questions, or our report is, that's, our report is finished.
Scotty, these reports probably aren't the place to do it, but at some point, the walk bridge project is going to become more and more evident, particularly around South Norwalk. So what mechanism is there to overlay some of the anticipated impact of that onto the history of the assets in South Norwalk to get a sense of, and I don't know how much it'll be left in this year cycle. But at some point it's going to be like right now there's three of the 4 cranes are up, and so it's intensifying. And I think we're covered on the Water Street lot and the agreements with the project. So we're covered there with any usage that they take from a revenue perspective. But the impact on the other assets, it's going to affect how we budget.
Eric, you're right, and so we did work up the arrangement where the project will pay the fee for taking a meter out of commission, but that really is just going to add to the revenue, right? But we're never really going to get. I think, Mustafi, what I think we need to do is create a section that at least potentially calls out the number of meters that are out of commission, right? We have to find, let's brainstorm and find some way to measure the impact, because the impact might not necessarily create a financial impact because there'll be some type of compensation, but it might be very much skewing numbers in the long term, to your point, Eric, I think.
Right, that's what I'm worried about, because like Elizabeth Street, I think is closed at this point. When that happens on other streets, it'll matter more from our perspective, from a revenue perspective, because all of that's taken out. And as far as I know, I don't know how the project, or if there's a role that the project is taking in making sure that our revenues are as uninterrupted as possible. Not to mention the communicating with the public about what's going on, but it's just, if one of our streets that has a significant amount of usage on it is gone for a period of time, then it'll affect us immediately, and to the degree we can know it's coming, I think we'll be better off.
I think we could also we can certainly brainstorm, Eric. I think what we could look to do is create a section within the operations report that talks about impact, because that impact also could be when there's a street closure, right? That could impact how people are getting there, and then may not go, may opt to go somewhere else. So we'll look at that with from a physical usage relationship, but also I think we have to include some narrative of what was the activity that occurred. These are the living, breathing documents, right? So what is the activity that occurred that month, as far as street closures, as far as meters out of commission, right? So Brian and I are going to meet with Stephanie Pelletier from the Walk Bridge. I wanted Brian to get some time with her, so we'll spend that and incorporate that in somehow into this report, but we'll as a team, we'll take that as a takeaway to figure something out. So Brian, if you can put a little note, and we'll figure that out.
That'd be great, because the nature of this report is in hindsight, right? And the nature of what we're talking about kind of needs to be, it'll be in hindsight just because we'll have the data, but what would be helpful is to know what the future, what to expect. So that's, if it just seems to me it's time to start, acknowledging that this is going to, become a very evident project in a way that it hasn't so far. And which is fine, because it's all part of the process, but it's going to have an effect on us.
And it would be helpful too, talking about foresight. We're not seeing it yet, but to the extent there's any revenue from construction employees, that might be something that offsets that we don't really see unless we're recognizing maybe from the conversation with the project, manager, how that's going to look. Right.
Because Jim, I'm just thinking about the arms and legs of it. Let's say the parking lot over at Veterans Park somehow comes into greater usage. Well, that's another park asset that we, aside from violations, we don't benefit from or have any responsibility for managing. So so it just seems like, if we could, and maybe it becomes a topic point or some sort of executive session or something that we sort of help figure out how to anticipate some of this, but it just feels like it's time to do that.
Right.
Okay.
I think we'll also have a conversation with Stephanie too, and ask her for some FaceTime when the anticipation is up. Let her come and report that to the board as well, right? So we could get in that future look, we can get that from her as well.
Okay, good.
All right. So Stoppy, if you want to stop sharing, I can bring the agenda back up.
Okay. And then I made note too, so we'll add a section after we talk, Jim, on what we want to demonstrate.
All right, great. So let's get with Brian and we'll get something scheduled internally. All right.
So we could go back to item 2 and address the meeting minutes. Are there any comments or questions that anyone has? So hearing none. Oh, sorry, Peter, are you gonna?
Yeah, with the I think they had me leaving at 6 o'clock on the minutes of in July or August, and it was 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. So Jim, who makes a note like that?
So from that one, Darlene will be creating the notes from the recording. So for clarification, Darlene, correct the meeting minutes to reflect Peter's departure time at 7 p.m., not 6 p.m. So she'll make that note going forward. So when you approve the notes, just you can approve the minutes with the clarification that Peter's time was at 7 p.m.
At 7. Okay. All right, excellent. Does anybody else have anything? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. And noting again that the time would be changed on that line for related to Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Peter. All in favor? Aye.
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 Judd, I guess Judd.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that carries. So let's go to item 4.
So item 4 under the engineering and project report. So I wanted to give you an update of the South Norwood train station. So you'll recall that we did do roof leak. We had a roof leak around the area where the new coffee shop Black by Demand will be having their grand opening on Friday at 9:30 if anyone could attend. So that roof leak was repaired and it's holding. But I think the fact that we had a lot of rain also, after they finished that, we realized a second roof leak was up higher. So I made the decision to have them, we already had the scaffolding up, so we avoided mobilization charges again, and we were able to get the roof leak. It's going to be, we'll see a cost come through for roughly $10,000. That we have that funding in, we have maintenance funding available to cover that. But we'll see a bill coming soon for that. But the good thing about it is we saved significantly because it did rain a lot, without having to take down the scaffolding and then re-put it and put it back up again to do that. So we held up the scaffolding for the next rain, just to make sure that we had no further roof leaks. So we seem to have gotten all of our leaks fixed at the train station. So that's the good news.
Great, thank you. So then under item 5, it's the lot at 340 West Avenue. Jim, do you want to give some background on that, or do you want, I can?
Sure. Well, I can do it, and we can talk. So, Eric and I did have a conversation yesterday. So the lot at 340 West Avenue is a lot adjacent to the old YMCA. The YMCA and adjoining or adjacent properties have been sold and sold again. And it's currently under development. We did a development review for that. Randy Salvatore is putting a mixed-use development in on that corner. We're excited about what that reinvestment into that corner will look like. The city did maintain ownership of the parking lot. That was not included. That was not included in the land deal. It had always been a separate city parcel. So with the ownership of that, Eric and I did have a conversation, and Eric expressed an interest in putting this on the agenda to engage the city to have the management of that transferred to the parking authority as an additional asset. As you know, the increase in demand in the area will obviously be supported by increased need and use for parking. We could create the betterments that exist in that lot and add that to the parking inventory for Park Norwalk. So Eric, I can that's been transitioned to City Council, and we'll have that was transitioned to City Council, and we'll get an should you motion to move this forward, we will continue that discussion and put that ownership or that information back to you for final approval.
Jim, if it didn't come under our jurisdiction, what would happen to that being city-owned property?
The city doesn't own any other parking lots independently. So I think, I don't know what, I don't know what we would do with it, right?
Currently, not currently, for the past, I don't know how many years, Judd, it's just been chained off.
Yeah, no, I know it was
Yeah.
the YMCA parking lot, but I guess when Salvatore builds his development, I mean, he's got his parking requirements,
Yes.
but you're imagining that the retail and maybe even guests of the residents might use that for parking overflow or something.
Yeah.
I think there's that. I think as we continue to expand the NRBT,
Okay.
having destinations for that usage will drive. I think
Yep.
as we continue to see increased demand coming from the art center over there, there's that, and I think we have I think in the area, particularly with some of the Waypoint development, we have still available retail that's at storefront level, right? So now that we're starting to bring in a mass of people, more people to the area, will probably, I think what we're counting on is then as a city, and I think as a parking authority, increased demand for services in the area, increased usage, and then ultimately increased traffic, foot traffic, necessarily, vehicular traffic.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Jim, is this, I'm looking at an overhead shot of this area. Is it just the portion of the parking that's what I would guess is south of the YMCA building, which looks like
the one that's
roughly
more onto the corner of
45
Connecticut
stalls?
Avenue at West?
Yeah.
So
Okay,
not a
so it's-
major lot, right? But I think when we looked at the usage, the meter usage for West Avenue, right? I think we did see less transactions. What I noticed is less transactions, but those transactions were at a longer time period, a higher rate, right? So I think what we're starting to see is some resurgence of activity into the West Avenue corridor that could be further supported by us maintaining parking assets in the area.
Absolutely. And this is roughly, I'm throwing a dart here, but it looks like roughly 40 stalls.
I think it's a pretty
down.
good dart there, Matt.
Okay.
So something around there, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I
40,
mean,
50
there's
stalls.
much more action at the Norwalk Art Space and with the other developments next to the Waypoint going up.
Yeah,
There's
right.
certainly opportunity for us. That's great.
Yeah, and I think there's a significant investment being made into the museum at Matthews Park, right? I think there is longer term plans for a further investment in Matthews Park, reimagining what that could be. But again, I'll go back to the NRVT because I think that, as we expand the NRVT and get those better and missing connections in there, I think that we're going to see a tremendous increase of use of people coming for that destination. There's simply nothing like that in the area.
So, if we're approving something, Jim, what we're approving is just asking you and the team to further pursue it.
Yes.
Leading to something that we'll talk about later for actual approval of how it's operated.
Yes, we will put the final approval, but so that legal would be able to move forward with some agreement, they need something from the, that's going to be standing for the committee that you guys are in support of this, right? And then we can, then it could, whatever goes, could either come back to you or would go for a signature for that, just to maintain that as part of a Park Norwalk asset.
Okay. So unless there's some more questions or discussion, can we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion for TMP staff. I need a little help here, Jim.
I think what you could just say is, there's a motion to further investigate. I think. Well,
Further investigate.
I think you just. I think for clarity, you just want a motion for Park Norwalk to take action to manage the surface parking lot at 340 West Avenue.
Okay,
Right?
so
And then just that's that.
So I want to make a motion for Park Norwalk to take further action towards managing the surface lot at 340 West Avenue.
Second.
Thank you, Judd. Thank you, Matt. So all in favor, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
So the under 6A is the 15-minute free built into the operating systems.
Yes, so we did have some challenges with our designer. Those were corrected as of 4 o'clock today when we got the final copy in. We're running those copies tomorrow. And we'll have the signs up that will be able to finally put this in place. So I think we will see something in relatively short order to do the press announcement for the free 15-minute option.
Excellent.
So you will have it, but you'll have it announced by the next board meeting before the next board meeting.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so the Yankee Doodle.
Just one comment on that,
Sorry.
Jim. If I know you got a lot of projects, and Brian and I spoke about this yesterday, but the 15-minute option would be great if that could be worked into Park Mobile somehow, particularly, we have a couple of streets, Mott and Burnell, that have no pay stations or meters or anything. It's only Park Mobile. So
we have a call into Park Mobile already. So Brian did come back with that one. So we have a call in and waiting for them to come back.
right. Good. Thank you.
That call is already in motion.
Okay, good.
Thank you, John. So the customer space, the Yankee Doodle garage bathrooms, custom service.
Yes, so you guys had voted to move forward with that with the option to re-engage the lease for the bathrooms, which has been an ongoing lease agreement with the with Park Norwalk and the Norwalk Transit District. We're adding to that the use of the customer service space, which we approved the amount of our proposal from the Norwalk Transit District's CEO, Matt Pence, for $1,000, so that we would combine those into one agreement rather than having two. And now, so we approved the acceptance of $1,000. Legal just needs your so we didn't have a lease in front of you, so the lease was included in your packet. The lease is indicative of the fees that we discussed before. We need a formal approval from the board to enter into a lease agreement. So it would be enter into a lease agreement with the Norwalk Transit District for a leasing of the bathrooms and customer service space in the Yankee Doodle garage. And then we can formalize that agreement and Matt could take over it. I think that we have a lot of things to gain. Supporting our transit district and creating a customer service center for them at the garage, but also that puts more activity into the garage, more visits into the garage, makes the garage a little bit more as an intricate asset into the community over there. So I just need legal needs a formal approval, and then we can move forward with that lease agreement, the attached lease agreement.
So Jim, should it be a component of the contract that there's going to be significant work done on the garage that might interrupt access, or is that a concern?
So it's not a concern. I think that Matt knows the improvements that are planned for the facility. We aren't anticipating that this will have a negative impact to usage. I think we might have to redirect an entrance or exit, but I think we'll always have pedestrian access that's going to be able to go through all parts of the facility. So I don't see that as a concern to move forward.
Okay, great, awesome. Any discussion on the topic?
Just a comment sort of related to that. We have that beautiful conference room there, which I can't remember the last time it got used by us. And I don't have any ideas right now, but it would be great if somehow that could generate some income for us. I don't know how that could happen, but it is just sitting there. And so if anybody has any ideas on it, it would be great to start talking about it.
We do offer it up to the community on a regular basis. We've had some meetings there. I think we're probably the only ones that have used it. Yes, we made a significant investment into unutilized asset.
Yeah, I think
Is there any chance to have monthly meetings together personally?
I'm up for it.
Yeah, we did use that room for that purpose.
I'm still kind of a newbie a little bit. I'd love to get to meet everybody a little bit more and get to know them a little bit more.
I think that might be a good idea for us at least once in the coming quarter.
Yeah, let's do that.
So do we want to try and meet in person next month then?
Well, can we hold that, and can I just make a motion that we approve the entering into the license agreement
yes,
by and
yes.
between the Norwalk Parking Authority
Yes.
and the Norwalk Transit District for the use of the customer service room and restrooms at the Yankee Doodle parking garage?
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Judd. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So that carries. So I think, Jim, why don't you look at upcoming meetings and tell us if there's a better or worse time to meet in person, but because I think we're all saying, let's do it.
Okay. So I think it would be great, particularly with Brian on the team, getting to spend a little bit more in-person time. I think would be great. Brian will be solo for the October 25th meeting. I am flying back that day, so won't be available. What we'll do is I'll work with Brian tomorrow. We'll give you because Pam's not here as well. So we'll give you all the dates of the meetings for the next quarter and see if any of them work for you to do an in-person meeting. And we'll utilize that unutilized conference room in the Yankee Doodle garage. Peter,
Yeah.
I know it's going to be a very long trip for you to get there, but
I'll have to take a cab, I guess.
All right,
All
so
right,
we'll get that out.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So with that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt.
All right,
Second.
so Brian, if
Second.
you want to sign on and say goodbye to, I think we kind of just started.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't even say hi to Brian. I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm really happy to be part of this team. It's been a very eventful week. I know parking and just kind of trying to fit in with all the projects that have been going on and helping Jim out and ultimately helping the city of Norwalk. I'm looking forward to it. And I really appreciate the time that each of you have given me, and look forward to everything, my entire career here. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome aboard again.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, so then everybody have a great evening and rest of the week, and we'll circle back in a month.
All right, we'll follow back up with you with our items. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
All
Thank
right,
you.
good night.
Jim.
Good night.
All right,
Night.
Good night.